Yo, what's going on, CZN fam? I'm Sue, and in this video, I want to give a brief overview of some of the terms and general lingo you might hear in your time playing Chaos Zero Nightmare. Over the last 72 hours or so, I've had a number of people come into my streams and also post on my YouTube channel asking me a plethora of questions. And some of those are about gameplay-related mechanics. Things like, what does attack weakness mean? What does the combo mechanic mean, and how does it actually work? What do you mean when you keep using the word tutor? So I figured, as a resource for new and beginner players, to kind of go over most of the general mechanics of the game, talk about the various different keywords, buffs, and debuffs, and also some general card game lingo that you might hear in your time playing this game, things like card advantage or card selection, so that way you're not totally lost. I mean, it's completely understandable for two reasons. Number one, this game does a very bad job, I feel like, at times, of explaining its own mechanics and keywords. And number two, for some of you out there, this might be your first experience playing a card game, or more specifically, a deck building game. So I wanted to kind of just have a resource where I spend like 10 to 15 seconds for each term, to kind of guide you through it, so that way you know, and you're not totally lost when it comes to like maybe future videos where people start talking about like, oh, this card isn't very good because it's like -2 in terms of card advantage, or I should say in this case, card disadvantage. So if that's stuff that you don't necessarily know, then this will be the video for you. First, let's start by talking about the general card basics. First of all, this is a card game, so I think we should start with the basic building block of any card game, which is the anatomy of a card. In the top center of each card, you will see the name of the card. In the top left, you will notice a giant number here. This is the card's action point cost. Every turn, you start with 3 action points. So if a card in the top left has the number 1, it uses up 1 of your 3 action points. There are effects in Chaos Zero Nightmare that will increase the amount of action points you get per turn. If a card's cost in the top left-hand corner is X, then X is the remaining action points you have available. So for example, if you have 3 action points and you play a card with an X cost, it will spend all 3 action points and set the value of X to 3. For example, take a look at Calamity's Absolute Protection. It gives a shield equal to 100% times X. So if you spend 3 action points on it, the shield value will be 300%. Underneath the name of the card, we come to the card type. In Chaos Zero Nightmare, there are predominantly 3 card types: attack, skill, and upgrade. There are, of course, other card types such as curse or status ailment, but we'll talk more about those in the keyword section. Attack cards are the primary way to deal damage in CZN. It deals damage based on the conditions written on the card. If ever you're unsure, remember, reading the card explains the card. Combatant's card damage is usually calculated using that combatant's attack. However, if it says defense-based damage, then it will scale off of the combatant's defense and is something that is usually found on tanks and bruisers. An extra attack is a follow-up attack that is usually associated with the Ranger class. Debuffs like Mark or character-specific mechanics like Renoa's Dirge Bullet are common ways to trigger these types of attacks. Skill cards are one-time use effects. You play the card and you receive the effect, then it goes to your discard pile. Shields and healing cards are usually located here. Healing restores HP and lowers your combatant stress. Shield generates a barrier around your team that reduces incoming damage. If the shield blocks all of the damage on a turn, you will not gain stress from that attack. Next is upgrade cards. These are like skills, but they generate a static effect that lasts the entire battle. For example, if an upgrade says you'll receive increased damage on your 1-cost cards, all 1-cost cards for the entire fight will receive this bonus. So even if you played that upgrade 5 turns ago, you'll still have that upgrade. But once that battle concludes, the effect will have to be applied at the start of the next battle. Now that we know what the anatomy of a card is, let's talk about the different card types. Cards come in 3 different types: basic cards, unique cards, and also common cards. Basic cards are the 4 cards that you see in the top row of your character's card tab. These are the ones that start in every single deck at the start of any Chaos runs, as well as when you first start out in Chaos Zero Nightmare. Unique cards are the ones that you unlock throughout the game via Epiphany. Epiphany is something that triggers when you are playing in Chaos Dungeons. Sometimes you will see a gold star on the top left of your cards. If you play this card, it will trigger an Epiphany. Epiphany comes in two forms. One grants you a unique card from your character's kit, and the other upgrades an existing card. Try out various different Epiphany upgrades to build your own unique combatants and decks. The final type of card, common cards, are ones that are purchased in Chaos Dungeons at the various different shops or gained through events. These allow you to differentiate your builds and combatants from other players, and multiple characters have access to them. This set of common cards gives CZN limitless deck building possibilities, especially when you consider that common cards will be changed with each season. After that, we come to incredibly common terms that you're almost assuredly going to come across in your time playing this game. First up, the definition of draw. Draw is the action of taking a card from the top of your deck and putting it into your hand. At the start of each turn, you will draw 5 cards. Note that these 5 cards you draw at the start of the turn do not trigger draw effects such as with the partner NIKKE. Drawing is the most powerful thing you can do in almost every single card game since it gives the player more options. More options means more ways to win the fight. The number of cards in your hand that you can hold at any time, I believe in Chaos or Nightmare, is 10. After that, we come to discard. This is the act of sending a card from your hand to the graveyard, but sometimes it can also be from another location. Sometimes, for example, you might be asked to discard a card from the top of your deck. This is usually referred to as milling in other games and is a reference to the card Millstone in Magic the Gathering. Some cards in CZN also have bonus effects when they are discarded, such as the combatant Renoa. At the end of each of your turns, you will discard all remaining cards in your hand to the graveyard. This can trigger discard effects, by the way, such as with Renoa's Dirge Bullet. After that, we come to the draw pile, aka your deck. This is a combination of cards that you are currently playing with. It is made up of the basic, unique, and bonus cards from all 3 combatants that you are playing. When you try to draw from your deck while there are no cards left in it, it will shuffle the entire deck. Before you shuffle your deck, it's good to get into the habit of checking or memorizing the contents of your graveyard, aka your discard pile. There may be combos that you can recur from the graveyard that you'll lose access to if you shuffle them back too early. After that, we come to the aforementioned graveyard, aka the discard pile. The graveyard is all the cards you played on previous turns or cards that have been discarded through effects. After that, we come to exhaust as well as the exhaust pile. A card that has been exhausted has been removed from your deck from the current battle, but will be returned to the deck after that battle is over. Certain characters such as Kairon care immensely about the cards that are in your exhaust pile. Some characters such as Ray have the ability to exhaust cards from your deck in exchange for card draw. These types of effects are very powerful in CZN as they remove unwanted cards temporarily, allowing your deck to only contain the good cards that you actually need. Slimming down your deck in this way and getting rid of useless cards is what we usually refer to as deck thinning. Finally, playing cards generates ego points, which are used for partner skills as well as combatant ultimates. If a card mentions ego points, it refers to these points to activate partner and combatant abilities. Now, let's take a quick second before we move on to the keywords to talk about enemies as well as enemy behavior, starting with the term attack weakness. Attacking with this element located here massively increases the damage dealt to the enemy as well as the damage dealt to their tenacity. Tenacity refers to the segmented bar beneath the enemy's health bar. Every time you attack the enemy, this bar goes down. Attacking with the enemy's weakness will drastically reduce the gauge compared to normal attacks. When the enemy's tenacity gauge is depleted, they will enter the breakthrough state. The act of breaking an opponent's tenacity gauge is called Ravage, by the way. You get 1 AP, 1 action point back whenever you Ravage an opponent. If a card grants attack weakness, it means the attack always attacks as if the enemy was weak to it. For example, Maylin's cards state that she gains passion weakness, meaning that when she attacks, it will be as if the enemy was weak to passion, which is the color red, or like fire, I guess you could say, in this game. Next is behavior. This icon here lets you know what the enemy's next action is going to be. A sword means that they're going to attack you, shield is indicating that they're going to use some kind of defensive skill, and a swirl usually means some kind of debuff or extra effect. Axes mean that a powerful attack is incoming. Finally, let's talk about the action counter. This number here refers to the action count. When it hits 0, the enemy performs their action of choice. This is essentially the game's way of punishing you for taking too long of a turn and also indicating what are the high priority threats. Increasing the action count would delay the enemies from performing these skills. When you end your turn, any enemies that have not performed their action will do so at this time. Next up, let's talk about keywords. Keywords are shorthand phrases that convey information about a card quickly. Designers use these to allow players to develop a familiarity with common effects. Once players have understood the keywords in a base set, these are the building blocks that designers can use to create more complex designs without players feeling lost. It also just cuts down on the visual clutter of the card. In this section, I'll break down all the keywords I found so far in Chaos Zero Nightmare. If I miss one, check for a pinned comment to see if I added it there. Agony, a debuff that deals damage over time. Each time it procs, the duration is reduced by 1. Agony Imprint X. When Agony is gained this turn, the amount of Agony is increased by X, used to set up combos for characters like Tressa. Celestial. This card triggers its on-play effects whenever a different 2+ cost card in your hand is played. Combo. This one's actually kind of confusing because there's, as far as I can tell, 2 different combo keywords currently in Chaos Zero Nightmare. The first type of combo triggers whenever you use a card of the exact same element. So for example, if a card has combo and it is on a character like, say, Calamity, who is of the instinct element, if you play a different instinct card from your hand, it will trigger the combo and allow you to play the card for the bonus effect. The other type of combo triggers whenever an ally other than the combatant whose card it is played. So for example, if you have combo on a character like NIKKE, anytime you play a card from a character that is not NIKKE and the combo card is in your hand, it will trigger the card for free. You won't have to pay its cost, very similar to Celestial. As far as I can tell, that second type of combo can only activate one card at a time, so if you have multiple copies of a card, it will only trigger one combo per card. It's very confusing that there's 2 keywords that basically do different things that have the same name. Commence the Hunt. A buff stacking up to 5 times that is unique to Hugo as of the time of the recording of this video. When using a single target attack, the buffed unit will follow up with an extra attack for 50% of their attack damage. For each stack of Commence the Hunt, the damage increases by 30%. After the extra attack, you will lose 1 stack of Commence the Hunt. Counter Attack. You gain 1 stack of Counter Attack. If the enemy hits you, you will counter with a 100% defense-based damage attack. If the enemy attack is fully blocked by a shield, that counter attack is increased to 150% instead. Then you decrease your counter attack stacks by 1. Crystallize X. Gain a fixed shield equal to 20% for each crystallized stack at the end of each turn. So a card with Crystallize 5 generates a 100% shield every single turn. Curse plus status ailments. These are cards with negative effects. You usually do not want them in your deck and want to exhaust or remove them from your deck via the game's shop as soon as possible. Dark Mist Stance. A buff unique to Rin that I usually refer to as the Stance for short. The Stance can be obtained through card effects and provides bonuses to Rin's unique cards as long as she's in it. Whenever another ally uses an attack, Rin will exit the Stance. Damage Reduction. A stacking buff that decreases the incoming damage by 15%. When taking damage, reduce the stack count by 1. Note that some difficult enemies completely ignore this buff. Decibel. A buff stacking up to 5 times that's unique to Nia as of the recording of this video. When a deck shuffle occurs, all allies perform an extra attack on a random enemy equal to 50% plus an additional 50% for each decibel level. So if you shuffle up to 5 times, you will get a 250% extra attack. Destroy. If the target is defeated or is put into breakthrough state, the effect under Destroy will trigger. Dirge Bullet. A 1-cost attack with exhaust generated by Rinoa. If it gets discarded from your hand, it performs an extra attack on a random enemy. Manipulating Dirge Bullets is the backbone of playing Rinoa properly. Embers. When hitting or defeating a target in Breakthrough, you deal an extra 30% per stack of Embers, stacking up to 5 times. Ephemeral. Simply put, use it or lose it. If you don't use it this turn, it's gone for good. Evade. A stacking buff that prevents all damage that you would take. When damage is prevented this way, reduce the evasion stack by 1. Futility. A 1-cost status ailment that does nothing with the exhaust keyword. Generated by Kairon and is the basis for all of his combos. Haste. This card doesn't reduce the enemy's action count. Great in harder content where you have limited actions before being hit in the face. Impair. The opposite of the keyword Resolve. lower the target's shield gain by 50%. Inspiration. When the card is drawn due to an effect, you get the bonus under Inspiration. Very useful for combos. Lead/initiative. There is a 50% chance to reduce the card's cost by 1 if it's the first card you played this turn. The chance and cost may be more as these numbers are denoted as variable. Mark. When using attack cards on a marked target, you will get a follow-up extra attack. This reduces the mark stack by 1. Metallization. A stacking buff unique to Amir as of the recording of this video. Whenever you generate a shield, reduce metallization by 1 stack to perform a 80% defense-based damage attack on a random enemy. Morale. A stacking buff that gives 20% extra attack damage for each stack. Outbreak of War. Cards with this keyword start in your hand. Piercing. Attacks that pierce always bypass shields. Pulverize. Deal 20% more damage to a target if they have a shield. Reload. A stacking buff unique to Veronica as of the recording of this video. Reload increases ballista card damage by 50%, stacking up to 3 times. This buff is removed at the end of each turn. Resolve. A stacking buff that enhances how large the shields you generate are. You want to gain Resolve first, then activate a shield to receive the buff. Response. When drawn, activate the response effect. Retain. Doesn't get discarded when you end your turn. Retrieve. When you play the card, it returns to your hand and can be played again this turn. If a card says Retrieve X, it means that it can't be played more than X times in a turn. Save. A stacking buff that preserves action points between turns. If you end your turn with 1 or more AP, you will carry AP over equal to the number of save stacks you have. Then decrease your save stacks by the same amount. Ultimate. When you use this card, your turn ends instantly. Unique. Pretty self-explanatory. You can only have one of this card in your deck, so it can't be replicated. Unusable. This card can't be used until a certain condition is met. If there is no condition, the card simply can't be used, period. Wave. A stacking buff that is unique to NIKKE as of the recording of this video. When you gain 3 waves, you will gain 1 action point and then reduce your wave stacks by 3. Weaken. A stacking debuff that decreases damage by 25%. The debuff's duration decreases by 1 every time the afflicted party attacks. Vulnerable. Damage taken is increased by 50%. When triggered, vulnerable stack is decreased by 1. And finally, to round out this video, here is a short list of card game terms and concepts you may want to learn or familiarize yourself with. I assume these phrases will be thrown out and about when discussing future combat and releases, or how good or bad various cards are. Not all of these terms may be relevant, but I felt it was important to put these in the video for those of you who may be lost in case these terms ever come up in a social media post, on a video comment section, or in a stream. Aggro. An aggressive playstyle. You may hear people refer to characters as aggro characters. All that means is that it's a very aggressive character, not very defensive. Banish, exile, and trash. This simply means to remove a card from your deck from the game. It's very akin to the keyword exhaust. Banish is what Yu-Gi-Oh players call it, exile is what Magic the Gathering players call it, and trash is what people call it that play a lot of different deck building games such as Chaos Zero Nightmare. Bomb. Simply put, a card that's just ridiculously strong. Brick. A hand that's basically unusable. You may have heard me say this if you've been a fan of my Epic 7 videos. It's just something that is a paperweight. You can't do anything with it. Cantrip. Any low-cost card, usually something that costs 0 or 1, that has the phrase draw 1 on it. Ray, for example, has an abundance of these in her kit. Card advantage and card disadvantage. This is probably going to be the longest term in this section and might be a difficult concept for you to grasp. Card advantage is the idea that you're generating more cards than what you are spending. We usually describe this using basic math. If you play a card for an effect, you went -1 card in your hand. If that card also drew you 1 card when you played it, then you went +1 card in hand. The -1 from playing the card and the +1 from drawing the card cancel each other out, so we would refer to that as +0. Card advantage is when you gain more cards than what you spent. So for example, if you played a card with draw 3 on it, such as Barrel's Guilty Pleasure, you lost a card in hand, which is -1, but then you drew 3 cards, which is +3. This means that you have a -1 and a +3, making Guilty Pleasure, a +2. This leaves you with more cards in your hand than you started with. This is card advantage. You can tell if a card or effect is powerful if it leaves you with card advantage, especially if it didn't cost you much to use it. This is why ego skills that draw cards are incredibly strong in this game, because you're giving up no cards in hand to make it happen. The opposite of card advantage, card disadvantage, should be self-explanatory at this point. You're essentially using more cards than you are actually gaining back. You can look to a card like Renoa's Flower of Devoured Fate for an example of card disadvantage. You spend the 1 card in your hand to use the effect of discarding 2 cards to add 2 Dirge bullets to your hand. You lost 3 cards in your hand to gain this effect, and in return, you only got 2 cards back to your hand. This is a -1. The value of Flower of Devoured Fate comes in its combo potential. If it didn't have any combos that you could use it with, then the card would be terrible because it's just strictly card disadvantage. Card selection. When an effect gives you the ability to look at several cards off the top of your deck and make a decision on how to put them back or which ones go into your hand. Can be either slightly weaker or stronger than drawing cards, depending on whether or not the card is added to your hand or how many cards are actually seen. Nia's cards are a very good example of this. Combo. Sequencing cards together to create a big play that usually wins the game. Control. A playstyle that is dead set on making sure the opponent doesn't get to execute their game plan. In CZN, this would basically be a playstyle that revolves around defeating or stunning enemies so that way they can't do anything. If that's your preferred way to play, you'd probably be a control player in a traditional card game. Fizzle. Admittedly, this one's kinda hard to explain. When something causes a card played to not complete all of its effects or simply just not activate at all. Mill. Derived from the card Millstone from Magic the Gathering. To mill something is to essentially discard that many cards off the top of your deck. So if an effect says mill 3, you take the top 3 cards of your deck and put them into your discard pile. Mulligan. This one most people I feel like are familiar with, but it's pitching your whole hand to get a new one. Not entirely relevant in Chaos Zero Nightmare, but I sometimes use this to describe the effect of Shuffle from Cassius. Recursion. Usually, but not always, refers to picking up something from your discard pile. Tutor. Derived from Demonic Tutor in Magic the Gathering. This is the effect of searching your deck for any card and putting it into your hand. It's just easier for some players to say tutor as a shorthand rather than say, I search my deck for this specific card. Search can apply to other zones like your discard pile or your exhaust pile and not necessarily the deck. Tutor is almost always shorthand for searching the deck. And finally, Vanilla, a basic card with no real effects. Most basic attacks and basic skills in a combatant's starting deck would classify as vanilla. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. If I missed any terms, again, check for the pinned comment or let me know down in the comment section below. And if I didn't do a good enough job explaining something, again, please let me know or hit me up on Discord. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.